Picture this. You're prowling around the bourbon aisle trying to find something tasty. You're looking at all these bottles and all these labels and all these terms and words, and you're just frantically looking around for someone to explain what it is that you're reading. Well, fear not. I'm here to help you make sure that you know exactly what you're looking at when you're reading a bourbon label. Hey everyone, I'm Tim the Suburban Dad. I'm here to help dads find great bourbon. Looking at a bourbon label, it can be overwhelming and confusing, but fear not. Today I'm going to break it down for you so that way you can confidently look at a label and be able to decipher what you're getting yourself into. First of all, the term small batch. Small batch is rather misleading. It could be anything from 4 barrels up to 400 barrels. What do I mean? Well, when they're making that particular bottle, they are combining multiple barrels of bourbon to create a blend for this particular expression, this type of whiskey. Booker's is a great example of one that's always small batch. Again, the term small batch is kind of gimmicky because it could be all across the board. There's no designation for what qualifies as small batch. The thing about small batch is it tends to give rise to a more consistent flavor over time. Okay, it's very predictable. Although with Booker's, each expression is going to be unique. So even though it says small batch, they're not trying to achieve the same flavor profile each time. Most bourbons that are small batches do try to keep consistency by blending various barrels together. Contrast that with single barrel. A great example of a single barrel is Blanton's. Whether it's a store pick like this one or not, it's always going to be a single barrel. In other words, the bourbon in that bottle has come from one single barrel that was dumped out and then bottled, and then they dumped out the next barrel and then they bottled that. They didn't blend a bunch of them together. It's called a single barrel. So a single barrel might be a standard expression like Blanton's, or it might be a special release, or it could even be a store pick. Anytime you get a store pick bottle, it is always a single barrel. That's how those work. Single barrels are always going to be unique, whether they're store picked or not. You're always going to get slight variation from bottle to bottle because not all barrels are the same. You might see a bottle that is bottled in bond. My most convenient example of this is Chestnut Farms. This is Total Wine's brand. It is actually pretty decent. All that aside, we're talking about terms here. Bottled in bond. This designation is not as relevant today as it used to be back when it was enacted in 1897. We're not going to get into the history of it right now, but basically it was to improve standards of bourbon, keep people who are drinking it safe from all the crap and additives that people were adding back in the day for various reasons. Bottled in bond means that this bourbon was aged at least 4 years in a government bonded warehouse. So the government agents had keys to the warehouse. They could go in and check on it at any time and make sure there's no funny business. There could be no additives, flavoring, or anything like that. It's bottled at 100 proof exactly, not higher, not lower. It was made at the same distillery during the same distilling season. So this is not one where a bunch of barrels of different ages are blended together. It has to be the same age. So it could be blended from various barrels, like a small batch, but it has to be from the same distilling season at the same distillery. And that name of the distillery has to be clearly labeled on the bottle. Interestingly enough, age is not required on a bourbon label. Okay, some companies choose to not state the age of their bourbon. The reason for this, I'd expect most commonly, is that it gives them more freedom. They don't have to commit to, hey, every single bottle of this is at least 8 years old. So they might be able to get away with blending younger barrels in with older ones to achieve the same flavor profile. So it gives them a little more flexibility. Now, some companies do choose to add an age statement. I personally appreciate that. I don't necessarily care if it's younger, like 4 or 5 years old versus 8, 9, 10 years old. I just care about how it tastes, but I do appreciate the transparency. Now, there are a couple tips if there's no age statement. If it's bottled in bond, like we said, it has to be at least 4 years old, so you know it's at least that far along. If it says straight bourbon on it, then it's at least 2 years old. Depending on where it's aged, 2 years is not much.
Only aged for 2 years? Get this toddler out of here. Somebody call daycare.
But again, at least it kind of gives you a sense of bare minimum. Another crazy thing is the bottle doesn't even have to say where it was made. Now, things to look out for. I wouldn't even say most. Many bottles will say it's distilled and bottled by the company that makes them. However, if it says produced by X company or bottled by X company, that means that they did not distill it. Unless it says distilled by X company, it was probably sourced from somewhere else. A lot of times that's Ross and Squibb. They're the biggest source of sourced whiskey out there. So if it says distilled in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, and aged and bottled in Kentucky, then that means it's from Indiana at Ross and Squibb. Either way, don't be fooled if they say produced by, bottled by. It means it's not their own juice. If the bourbon has been finished in a secondary barrel, that has to be disclosed on the label. Like Penelope Havana, it says right on there that it's been finished in rum and maple barrels. So they do have to let you know, because you can't just be putting flavoring in bourbon. Not that that's specifically adding flavoring, but you kind of are. And the last biggie is proof. Now, every single bottle has to have the proof on it. Bourbon has to be at least minimum of 80 proof. Some tricky terms that they throw around are cask strength, full proof, and barrel proof. Now, of those three, cask strength seems to be the most reliably accurate when describing bourbon that has been taken from the barrel and not diluted at all. So no water added. The other two, not so much. For example, barrel proof, you think that would be something that would be very clear cut. Oh, barrel proof, it's right from the barrel. Sometimes, like Elijah Craig and Bernheim barrel proof, that's exactly what happens. They take it out of the barrel and they put it in a bottle. They don't water it down. Rare Breed, on the other hand, every single bottle of Rare Breed is 116.8 proof. Now, there's no way that they can distill it that precisely that they get it down to the 10th place decimal point every single time. So they have to water it down to get it just right where they want it. Full proof, you would think, oh, that means it's right from the barrel too, because that's, it's full proof. No. So again, full proof is a term that's used to describe higher proof bourbon, but not undiluted. Great example of that is 1792 full proof. Every single bottle is 125 proof, even. Again, you can't achieve that without adding some water to get it just right. Same thing is true with Weller full proof. It's always 114 proof even. That's a big giveaway that it's been watered down. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it at all. I like higher proof stuff. I don't mind if they have to water it down a little bit to get it right where it is, but I also do enjoy straight from the barrel, so that way it's unadulterated. So there you go. Hopefully that helps expand your awareness of what you're looking at when you're hunting for bourbon, especially if you're hoping to try something new or you're just unfamiliar with what bottle you're looking at. It's not a guarantee. None of these tidbits are guarantees that it's going to be good bourbon inside the bottle, but at least you get to know a little bit more what you're getting yourself into. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and until next time, cheers.